Our story begins within the demon sect, now under siege by the Merm. The sect's soldiers fight desperately to hold the line, resisting the invaders' push toward the inner gates. Amid the chaos, the protagonist, Yum-yang, races toward the palace where the sect leader has taken refuge. As he runs, he reports to himself, or perhaps to anyone listening, that the Merm have sent over 10,000 fighters. Suddenly, a man notices him and freezes in surprise. It's Sandoyan. He strides toward Yum-yang, his expression tight with urgency. Sandoyan demands to know why Yum-yang is wandering unguarded in the middle of a battlefield, ordering him to follow at once. But Yum-yang shakes his head, insisting he is heading to the leader's palace. He explains that she stayed behind after ordering the others to flee. Sandojan's face darkens. He warns that the situation is critical. The defensive line won't last an hour. He urges Yum-yang to seek safety immediately. Yum-yang refuses to relent. He says he will come back, but first he needs to understand what the leader is planning. Seeing his determination, Sandojan exhales sharply and steps aside, relenting with a terse acknowledgement. Yum-yang sprints off, leaving Sandojan behind. When he finally reaches the palace doors, he calls out, asking if the leader is still inside. Silence answers him. His chest tightens. He raises his voice, nearly shouting now, declaring that he is at the door and begging her to open it. Then her voice responds, calm but firm, granting him permission to enter. His breath catches. He hadn't expected an answer at all. Hand trembling, he presses against the door, then hesitates. He wonders if she heard what he said earlier, the words that had spilled out in frustration, dangerously close to disrespect. Steeling himself, he shoves the door with all his strength. It groans open reluctantly, and he grunts at the effort, complaining about its weight. He mutters that they should have left at least one guard with her. Once inside, he doubles over, panting. The leader watches him, her body visibly weakened. Her voice is quiet but sharp as she remarks that his combat skill are still beneath even a third-rate fighter. Still catching his breath, Yum-yang manages a weak laugh, admitting that right now he's just glad no one saw him struggling with a damn door. Yura gives a faint nod, her piercing gaze locking onto Yum-yang. She observes that had any elders overheard his earlier disrespectful tone, he would have faced severe punishment, making it clear she had heard everything. Immediately chastened, Yum-yang drops into a deep bow of respect. In this moment, the sect leader's name is revealed to be Yura. With visible effort to maintain her regal bearing despite the poison's effects, Yura studies her visitor. Her voice carries both curiosity and exhaustion as she questions why the sect's weakest member has sought her out. Yum-yang deflects by demanding to know why she remains in the besieged palace. Beads of sweat glisten on Yura's forehead as she flatly states the obvious. The poison coursing through her veins has made escape impossible. Yum-yang's composure shatters. His hands clench into white-knuckled fists as he demands confirmation whether this was the work of the traitorous sect leader. That man's name, Han Mobek, hangs heavy in the air between them. He was the very man Yura had chosen as her husband, who then betrayed her by opening the sect gates to the Murum Union, now leading the defectors as their new master. Yura's regal mask slips momentarily, revealing profound sorrow as she recounts Han Mobek's cruel confession. He claimed to have endured years of suffering just to gain her trust and affection. The poison, he had told her with vicious satisfaction, would let her experience but a fraction of his pain. The revelation hits Yum-yang like a physical blow. His hand flies to cover his mouth, stifling a guttural sound of rage. Every muscle in his face contorts with barely contained fury. Observing his visceral reaction, Yura surprises herself by smiling faintly and remarking that he truly is an interesting person. But Yum-yang shakes his head sharply, insisting now isn't the time for such observations. The Yura he knows has always been the epitome of seriousness, confidence, and discipline. Yet, here at life's end, she finds reason to smile. His voice drops to an urgent whisper as he asks the critical question whether it's already too late to counteract the poison. Yura confirms with grim finality that the toxin has penetrated her energy core. While she could have resisted any other poison, this particular variant was engineered to bypass all her defenses. Yumyong begins to call her name, then falters. The word if spills from his lips repeatedly, like a broken incantation. Yura's patience evaporates. Her eyes flash dangerously as she warns that one more utterance of if will cost him his tongue and commands him to get to the point. Steeling himself, Yumyong finally voices his desperate question. If she had the chance to return to life, what would she do? The unexpected query leaves Yura momentarily speechless. Yumyong's chuckle carries dark amusement as he reminds her of his earlier claim that in his past life he'd saved the world. Yura responds with a disbelieving laugh that rings hollow, stating she can't begin to imagine someone like him as a world-saving hero. He waves this aside impatiently, insisting she just pretend it's true, and pressing her again about what she would do if such an opportunity existed. Her voice turns brittle as she questions why he torments her with false hope, saying that if this chance were real, he should be pursuing it for himself, rather than taunting her with it. Yumyong's expression hardens. He states with cold intensity that the first thing she should understand about him is his absolute intolerance for betrayal, and the second, that this is how he repays a debt she doesn't even remember. Yura's brow furrows in genuine confusion as she admits she has no recollection of any favor owed. A knowing smile touches Yumyong's lips as he tells her not to strain herself remembering. His mind drifts back to their first meeting years ago when he had been among the candidates vying to become her husband. Yura returns his smile, a flicker of hope crossing her face. She asks what he would do if she truly returned. He responds that even if she will not remember any of this, he now knows every traitor who infiltrated the sect and the Merm Union that dared attack them. He vows to wield his full power to annihilate every last one without exception. He asks if she has a final wish and promises to fulfill it. Yura's answer catches him off guard. She wants him to try seducing her. Yumyong staggers, visibly stunned. He insists he is certain he can stop Han Mobek from becoming the demon sect's leader, but becoming her husband, he admits, he is less sure of. He reminds her she once declared a relationship between them impossible, stating that love requires mutual desire. Since ascending as the demon sect's unchallenged leader, she has crushed every suitor. Han Mobek only rose to power, he adds, because he endured her ruthlessness. Yura shrugs and says he need not comply. Yumyong counters sharply, declaring he never called her request impossible. He closes the distance between them, leaving her flustered. Romantic feelings, he murmurs, often bloom when one cares for someone indifferent. With a sly smile, he concludes that since she asked, it will not be difficult at all. Yura blushes deeply, unable to conceal her embarrassment. Yumyong looks at her intently, observing aloud that her features are strikingly beautiful. He requests a single promise, her forgiveness, if he ever spoke harshly of her in the past. Dropping to his knees, he clasps her hands and pleads for her to disclose her weaknesses so he might exploit them upon returning to the past. Yura's expression shifts to visible annoyance. She warns him that any leak of their conversation will result in severe consequences for him. She emphasizes she will speak only once, and he must heed every word. After she reluctantly shares her vulnerabilities, Yumyong laughs, remarking that she must have been formidable in her prime. Yura sharply orders him to silence, addressing him by name and declaring their discussion concluded. The intruders have breached her palace. She offers him a merciful death, but he declines. Smiling faintly, he asserts his resolve to witness events unfold until the final moment. Guan Hien, leader of the Murmur Union, strides forward, stating he never expected to live long enough to witness the demon sect's downfall. Yumyong accuses him of arriving alongside a traitor. Guan Hien chuckles, gesturing toward Han Mobek. He proclaims Han Mobek's formal title, Sacred Heavenly Dragon, and reveals he endured humiliation for the sake of Janju. Yumyong scoffs at the title, deriding Han Mobek for reducing himself to the Murmur Union's pawn. He declares their sins must now be repaid. Yura, still glistening with sweat, jeers that her beloved husband has at last returned. Han Mobek responds tersely, insisting every action he took was for Janju. Yura responds coldly, declaring his actions were for the sake of a society bold enough to defy the heavens. The crowd around them stiffens, stunned into silence by her words. Yumyong registers that this is his first encounter with mention of such a group. Hanmo erupts into panic, yelling to the crowd not to fall for the witch's deceptions, a final attempt, he claims, to spread chaos before her end. Murmur soldiers echo his warnings, insisting demons cannot be trusted, even in their desperation. Han Mobek growls that fighting her one-on-one is pointless and demands they overwhelm her collectively. Yura fires back that even poisoned, she requires no aid to crush them all. Guan Hien sneers at her confidence, but his taunt falters as a raw, explosive energy bursts from Yura's form. She stands poised for battle. Murmur Union soldiers recoil, disbelief etched on their faces at her retained strength despite the poison. Guan Hien, sensing catastrophe, bellows for his forces to strike without hesitation. The clash begins, the demon sect's leader against the full might of the Murmur Union. When the chaos dims, Yumyong stirs awake from the unconsciousness that claimed him during the fray. Yura voices her relief, confessing she feared he had perished. He shudders at her worsening condition. But she presses on, stating she is grateful to have endured long enough for a final exchange. She reveals the Murmur forces retreated when she unleashed her self-destruction technique. Yumyong's tears fall silently. She notices and questions their cause. He admits his anguish is beyond bearing. Though her body is gouged and pierced by blades, she closes the distance between them and asks if he will now uphold his vow, to pursue her favor instead of Han Mobek's. Yumyong, still weeping, swears he will keep that promise, regardless of the price. Yura laughs softly, her expression easing at his words. Then her body gives out, collapsing. He lunges forward, catching her as sobs rack his frame. He mutters to himself that these are his final moments in this lifetime. His first life, he reflects, was not without merit. He saved humanity, earned the revered title, Guardian of Earth, and was rewarded by the celestial ruler with 3 boons, including 2 chances at revival. He had once planned to live without burdens, but now, after all that has unfolded, he pledges to dedicate this last life entirely to Yura. When he opens his eyes, his servant Joe Chill is positioned before him, holding a tray laden with food. He stiffens in shock. Joe Chill's youthful appearance confirms he has traveled years into the past. He observes silently as Joe Chill piles food onto the table. A disembodied voice resonates in his mind, clarifying his regression. He is 17 again, on the cusp of entering the Demon Sect Tower, where he will gain the notorious reputation as the carefree playboy of the demonic bird. Panic seizes him as his father, Ginjan, patriarch of the Yen family, bursts into the room, incensed by his actions, particularly his underage drinking. Ginjan slaps him, hauls him back home, and thrusts the liquor bottle in his face, raging that the Yen family's heir lacks even the basic restraint to avoid alcohol. His father's eyes blaze with contempt as he condemns Yumyong as a disgrace to their lineage. Yumyong rushed toward his father, ready to explain the situation. It was because of the meeting with the demon sect's new leader. The event would gather Yura, then only 17 like him, and the heirs of the 6 great demonic clans. Its purpose? To select the sect's next leader. But Yumyong thought bitterly of his past life, where none of the 6 heirs had been chosen. Yura had instead picked the traitor Han Mobek. With his father standing over him, Yumyong muttered under his breath, "Not this time." His father pressed further, demanding to know if Yumyong could secure the sect leader's favor before the other heirs. Yumyong met his gaze without flinching. The other heirs didn't stand a chance. To his surprise, his father smiled. Then, with a final remark about learning martial arts before further shaming the clan, he turned and left. The moment his father disappeared, Yumyong exhaled sharply. Of all people, he hadn't expected Jingjan to be the first face he saw after returning to the past. But this was the perfect timeline, not 10 years before the betrayal, but 20. Enough time to rewrite everything. Then, Yura's words echoed in his mind. The society that defies the heavens. His fists clenched. That group must still be active now, and he would erase them. A misunderstanding. Nearby, Yaochin, or Joe, as Yumyong called him, frowned, asking what his plan was now. Yumyong blinked in confusion. Joe crossed his arms, stating that Yumyong had just sworn to his father that he would become the sect leader's future husband. Yumyong sputtered in protest. When had he said that? He had only claimed the others would fail. Joe shrugged, insisting it was the same thing. Yumyong hissed a denial. Right now, Yura cared only for martial arts. She wouldn't spare a glance for someone weaker. Just then, a new voice cut in, a smirking young man approaching them. Well, he hadn't expected Yumyong to still be here. Yumyong studied the approaching figure, his brow furrowing as he struggled to place the face. After a deliberate pause, recognition dawned. Male, the second son of the Blood Dragon clan, one of the 6 great families under the demon sect's rule. With feigned curiosity, he asked if Male had been so desperate to find him that he came alone, and where his little sister, Yonghai, might be. Male's expression darkened immediately. He snapped that no such sister existed, then squared his shoulders and declared his intent to formally challenge Yumyong to a duel. The declaration caught Yumyong off guard. This encounter had never happened in his past life. His mind raced through possible reasons. Perhaps because his father hadn't struck him this time, altering the timeline's flow. Even the smallest change was already having consequences. The demon sect's hierarchy was built upon 6 major clans beneath the central leadership. Among them, the feud between Yumyong's clan and the Blood Dragon clan ran especially deep. Yumyong crossed his arms, coolly reminding Mali that clan law strictly prohibited unsanctioned duels between members of different houses. Male smirked, insisting this situation qualified as an exception. Yumyong quickly ran through the possible exemptions. Matters of clan survival, pre-approved ceremonial duels, or realization struck. This was about the sect leader's engagement ceremony. Male confirmed it, his grip tightening on his sword hilt. He vowed that if he lost, he would withdraw his candidacy from the ceremony. Yumyong's memory flashed to Male's younger brother, another potential candidate. A slow, mocking smile spread across his face. He taunted Male, questioning if his brother was truly so incompetent that he needed to eliminate competition on his behalf. Male's face flushed crimson with fury. Male moved faster than expected. His sword left its scabbard with a metallic hiss as he roared and lunged at Yumyong. Nearby, Zhou Chun reacted instantly, reaching for his own blade, but Yumyong's sharp command stopped him cold. He ordered Zhou not to interfere under any circumstances. As Mela charged, something within Yumyong stirred. The hyper-enhanced senses from his first life as humanity's champion. Time seemed to slow. Every detail became vivid. The angle of Male's blade, the tension in his muscles, even the displaced air from his movement. The dual Zhou paled, protesting that Yumyong had never trained in martial arts. How could he possibly? His words died as Yumyong's body moved with unnatural precision. His left hand shot up, catching Male's wrist mid-swing, halting the blade inches from his face. The sheer impossibility of the maneuver left Zhou speechless. Yumyong assessed the situation coldly. As Male stumbled off balance, Yumyong's right foot snapped up in a brutal front kick, striking his sternum. The impact sent Male airborne before he crashed onto the cobblestones, his sword skittering away. The entire exchange lasted less than 3 seconds. Zhou stood frozen, struggling to reconcile what he'd just witnessed. Just yesterday, Yumyong had been an untrained noble's son. Now he moved like a battle-hardened warrior. Aftermath. He ordered them to take their young master away. With a disdainful glance at the unconscious Male, he warned them to ensure no tales of this humiliation spread, unless they wanted the entire sect to know how easily the Blood Dragon heir had been defeated. The scene transitioned to Yumyong arriving at the clan residence, where every member had assembled to greet his return. The head steward inquired whether Yumyong had found his brief outing with friends pleasurable. Yumyong responded that providing a straightforward answer was challenging, as he could not disclose his father's personal intervention to retrieve him, though he suspected the steward was already aware. He remarked with subdued humor that the steward occasionally lacked subtlety. The steward offered a smile and countered that his inquiries stemmed solely from concern for Yumyong's well-being. Yumyong brushed aside the remark and formally petitioned for entry to the training chamber. The steward stiffened, visibly startled, and questioned if Yumyong genuinely meant to pursue martial arts training. Around them, other clan members traded uncertain looks, their whispers echoing shared disbelief at his apparent commitment to training.
He assured them he was not joking and instructed them to retrieve specific martial arts scrolls from the clan's library. He began listing the required scrolls. Remembering his teacher's earlier claim that mastering those skills would make him unbeatable. In the past, he had argued that the scrolls were not originals but copies. His teacher had explained that those techniques failed to thrive because they ended up with Geniclan members fixated solely on brute strength. After obtaining the scrolls, Yamyang noted that he could only access them now because the library had not yet burned down, a disaster scheduled to strike in 4 years. He stated that the Geniclan's fighting style emphasized punches and kicks, which clashed with his own aptitudes. Yet he acknowledged his innate talent, keen instincts, and a solid base of internal energy. He added that even if he never saw his teacher again, he would become the fighter his master had desired in this lifetime. Suddenly, he recalled his vow to the demon sect leader, his promise to seduce her. With muted resolve, he admitted he could not yet honor that pledge. His present capabilities were still inadequate to earn her attention. He declared he would need 5 years, 5 full years of total seclusion, to immerse himself fully in mastering martial arts. Once stronger, he pledged to track down and eradicate every member of the society that defied the heavens individually. This would ensure that when Yura rose to lead the demon sect, no opposition could challenge her authority. 2 weeks later, the scene shifted to Yumyang walking beside his servant Jo Chil, who glared disapprovingly at Yumyang's leisurely pace. Yumyang reasoned there was no urgency, as he would be last in line regardless of his speed. Upon reaching the gate, the guards opened it with clear irritation at his lateness. Jo Chil sharply reminded him that this event was hosted by the Cheon clan, the paramount branch, and such tardiness invited repercussions. Yumyong calmly asserted that he alone would accept accountability if complications arose. He then remembered the shame of his past life, after failing spectacularly at the engagement ceremony. His father had confined him for a full year. Suddenly, a body crashed through the air and landed directly before them. Yumyang chuckled, commenting that the greeting seemed excessively energetic, while Jo Chil observed with sarcasm that someone had clearly been thoroughly defeated. As the smoke cleared, a figure clad in red robes emerged: Mayan, younger brother of Mail from the Blood Dragon clan. Yura's voice called out to Mayhan, suggesting he could serve a purpose for her. She questioned whether he still possessed the endurance to fight further. Mayhan clambered to his feet and dashed toward her, declaring he had reserves of strength remaining. At that instant, Yomyang's eyes met Yurua's. His face tensed, irritated that he had failed to arrive as late as he originally planned. Nearby, Jo Chil teetered on the edge of fury, demanding to know how Yomyang could joke during such turmoil. Yomyang responded that his only aim was to relish the unfolding drama. He remembered that in the previous timeline, Yura had annihilated Mayhan with one blow, causing the boy to disappear permanently. Now, however, the situation felt distinctly different. Mayhan launched an allowed attack, which Yura blocked without effort. With visible excitement, she noted that his combat ability surpassed her initial assumptions. Yomyang was startled, privately doubting whether Mayhan had truly become so formidable. Before he could fully consider the idea, Mayhan was already sprawled motionless on the ground. Mayhan's attendants rushed to examine his injuries. Even lying prone, Mayhan shouted Yomyang's name, leaving Yomyang perplexed by the outburst. Mayhan then vowed he would never concede defeat to Yomyang. He turned to Yura and stated that fighting her had been a privilege. Yura replied that she expected his skills to improve by their next meeting. Yomyang found the exchange odd, having anticipated Yura would dismiss Mayhan immediately. Yura ordered Mayhan to proceed to the medical center for treatment. Mayhan's expression brightened at her command. Yet, as he walked past Yamyang, he directed a hateful glare toward him. Yamyang flinched, baffled by the hostility. This was their first encounter in this life. He could not comprehend the animosity. Yura then approached him, announcing she had been awaiting his arrival for some time. Yamyang stiffened at her voice, shocked. She had genuinely expected him. She pointed her sword at him, observing that Mayhan had demonstrated adequate ability. She added that since Yamyang had defeated Mion's elder brother, he should be significantly stronger. Only then did Yamyang understand the root of Mayon's resentment. Yura warned that disappointing her expectations would displease her greatly. Yamyang argued that the demon sect's fundamental weakness was its dependence on raw force to settle disputes. Without warning, Yura attacked a blindingly fast strike, targeting his head. He had believed this was a simple spar, but her lethal focus now left no room for doubt.